Imagine the largest shark that ever terrorized the oceans, a 60-foot nightmare with jaws wide enough to swallow a car whole, suddenly finding itself face to face with a snake so massive it could crush a crocodile like a soda can. One ruled the open seas with teeth the size of human hands. The other dominated prehistoric swamps with a body thick enough to block a doorway. They never actually met in history, separated by millions of years and entirely different worlds. But today, we're throwing the rules of time out the window. We're putting Megalodon against Titanoboa in a head-to-head battle across every category that matters: size, weight, speed, combat skill, and raw weaponry. And then we're dropping them into a final showdown to see which prehistoric monster walks away or swims away as the ultimate apex predator. And honestly, the result might surprise you. Let's set the stage with what we're actually dealing with here. Megalodon disappeared from Earth's oceans roughly 3 million years ago, and yet it still holds the title of the most terrifying shark to ever exist. Nothing alive today even comes close. The modern great white shark, already one of the most feared creatures on the planet, would look like a puppy standing next to this thing. Scientists estimate Megalodon stretched somewhere around 50 feet from snout to tail, possibly even longer. That makes it not just the largest shark in history, but one of the largest predatory fish the world has ever seen. The closest living comparison might be the whale shark, which can reach about 40 feet, but the whale shark is a gentle filter feeder. Megalodon was anything but gentle. This was a creature built entirely for destruction, a swimming engine of teeth and muscle designed to hunt whales. And then there's Titanoboa. If Megalodon was the nightmare of the ancient oceans, Titanoboa was the nightmare of the ancient jungles. This snake lived in the swamps of what is now Colombia, roughly 60 million years ago, during a period when the Earth was significantly warmer than it is today. That heat was actually the key to Titanoboa's absurd size. Snakes are cold-blooded, meaning their growth is directly tied to the temperature of their environment. Colombia's prehistoric climate hovered around 90 degrees Fahrenheit consistently, and that created the perfect conditions for a snake to grow to an approximately 42 feet. To put that in perspective, the longest snake ever recorded in modern history barely reaches 25 feet. Titanoboa could have swallowed that snake without even unhinging its jaw all the way. This was a predator that ate crocodiles, it ate giant turtles, it ate literally anything that wandered too close to the water's edge. Nothing in its ecosystem could challenge it. It was the undisputed ruler of its domain, a creature that behaved like an anaconda, but was built on a scale that makes anacondas look like garden hoses. So, when it comes to pure size, we're looking at 50 feet versus 42 feet. Both are staggering numbers, but Megalodon takes the edge here. 8 feet might not sound like much, but when you're talking about apex predators, every inch of extra reach matters, especially when that reach is lined with massive serrated teeth. Now, let's talk about weight, because this is where the gap between these two animals gets genuinely absurd. Titanoboa weighed roughly 2,500 pounds. That's heavier than a compact car with passengers inside. After a meal, you could tack on a few extra pounds from whatever unfortunate crocodile or turtle was now sitting inside its stomach. If you lined up 5 of the largest anacondas alive today and put them all on one side of a scale, you'd barely balance out a single Titanoboa. That's an incredibly heavy snake. But Megalodon? Megalodon weighed somewhere between 60,000 and 130,000 pounds. That's not a typo. At its heaviest estimate, this shark weighed as much as an empty commercial airplane. It outweighed Titanoboa by a factor of roughly 50. 50 Titanoboas stacked together just to match one Megalodon. That kind of mass is almost incomprehensible for a living creature, and it gave the shark an enormous advantage in terms of raw power. But all that weight came with a cost, and that cost was mobility. This brings us to speed and agility, and here the dynamic shifts dramatically. Megalodon could swim at roughly 11 miles per hour in short bursts. For an animal of its size, that's actually impressive. It was fast enough to chase down most prey in open water, but it turned like a freight train. Every course correction required enormous effort, and if it missed on an initial attack, circling back for a second attempt took precious time that a smaller, more nimble target could use to escape. Compare that to a sailfish, the fastest creature in the ocean, which can hit nearly 70 miles per hour. Megalodon wasn't winning any races. It relied on ambush tactics and overwhelming force rather than sustained pursuit. Titanoboa, on the other hand, was no speed demon on land. Snakes of that size would have moved relatively slowly across solid ground. But in water, Titanoboa was a completely different animal. It could swim at speeds of up to 12 miles per hour, and more importantly, it could change direction almost instantly. Its entire body was essentially one long, flexible muscle. It could twist, coil, dodge, and strike with a quickness that seems impossible for something that large. In a confined, shallow environment, Titanoboa's agility would be a serious problem for anything trying to catch it, including a shark the size of a school bus. This round goes to the snake, and it deserves it. When it comes to fighting skills, both of these creatures were absolute specialists. Megalodon didn't just bite things randomly. Fossil evidence shows that this shark was a strategic hunter. Scientists have found tooth marks on ancient whale bones that reveal Megalodon specifically targeted vital areas: flippers, tails, and rib cages. Some whale fossils show evidence of catastrophic blunt force trauma, indicating that Megalodon would sometimes ram its prey at full speed before going in for the kill. Imagine 50 tons of shark slamming into you like a battering ram. That impact alone could shatter bones and rupture organs. Other fossils suggest a different tactic entirely, where Megalodon would first cripple a whale by biting off its fins, leaving it unable to swim, and then circle back to finish the job at its leisure. This was not a mindless predator. This was a calculated killer. Titanoboa fought with a completely different philosophy. It wasn't venomous. It didn't need to be. Its method was constriction, the same approach used by modern anacondas and boas, but scaled up to a terrifying degree. Titanoboa's bite was designed not to kill, but to anchor. Its teeth were thin, pointed, and curved inward like fish hooks. Once they sank into flesh, pulling away only drove them deeper. The bite was the opening move. What followed was a full-body assault. Titanoboa would wrap its massive coils around its prey and squeeze with a force that could collapse a rib cage in seconds. It didn't just suffocate its victims, it crushed them. The sheer muscular power contained in 42 feet of dense, heavy-bodied snake was enough to immobilize and kill animals far larger than what any modern constrictor could handle. Both fighters earned full marks in this category. Finally, let's look at their actual weapons. Megalodon's teeth were 7 inches long, the largest of any known shark species. It had approximately 250 of them arranged in 5 staggered rows, and they were serrated like steak knives, designed to saw through blubber, muscle, and bone. Its jaws could open over 6 feet wide, and its bite force is estimated to have been one of the most powerful of any animal in Earth's history, possibly exceeding 40,000 pounds of pressure. Those jaws were essentially an industrial cutting machine attached to a torpedo. Titanoboa's teeth were smaller, but wickedly effective for their purpose. Thin, needle-sharp, and angled backward, turned the snake's mouth into a trap that only tightened with resistance. Combined with its lightning-fast strike speed, Titanoboa could latch on to a target before it even registered what was happening. Now, picture this. Megalodon has drifted into a shallow, murky coastal swamp off the edge of prehistoric Colombia. The water here is warm, thick with vegetation and barely deep enough for the massive shark to maneuver. This is Titanoboa's territory, and the snake knows every shadow, every current, every angle of attack. Titanoboa senses the vibrations of something enormous moving through its domain and begins circling. It strikes first, launching its jaws at the shark's side. The teeth connect, but they barely puncture the Megalodon's incredibly thick, rough skin. It's like biting into armor plating. Titanoboa tries to coil, wrapping itself around the shark's midsection, squeezing with everything it has. But the Megalodon's body is too wide, too dense, too massive. The constriction that would have collapsed a crocodile skeleton barely registers on a creature that weighs as much as a loaded truck fleet. Megalodon thrashes, shaking the snake loose just enough to create space. And then, with one slow, devastating turn, those 6-foot jaws find their mark. A single bite with 250 teeth, each one 7 inches of serrated bone-crushing force. The fight ends in an instant. Megalodon takes the victory. Not because Titanoboa was weak, far from it. Titanoboa was one of the most formidable predators to ever slither across this planet. But against an opponent 50 times its weight, with teeth 5 times longer, and a bite force that could crack whale skulls, the snake simply didn't have the tools to finish the job. Size and raw power in this matchup were the deciding factors. If you made it this far, you clearly have a taste for prehistoric battles, and trust me, there are plenty more where this came from. Hit that subscribe